Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
C&C Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, C&C provides patient-centered care for your entire family. C&C Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. We're live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios. We're also live streaming on YouTube. So again, grab your tablet if again you're out and about. We're live streaming every single Thursday at 1 p.m. on YouTube. Of course, tonight we will talk a lot about what's going on with the home teams as we always do. Tulane, LSU, Saints, Pelicans, all on tap. We'll also get we'll talk a little Super Bowl as well. Joining us tonight, as we always do, having one of the best out here. It is Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports. He can talk it all, high school, pros, college, and he joins us today talking about everything that's going on here in the sports world, here in the city and the state. Welcome, Chris, as always. Before we get started, I always like to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing at the station. Things have kind of changed a bit. Instead of doing shows every single day, now you got a couple days off. But give us the new lineup and, of course, your blog. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, we've got a chance to take a little bit of a breath after football season, maybe before free agency ramps up, so we can sit back and, for better or worse, enjoy watching the Super Bowl. We're not covering it,
right?
Which we were covering it. But we've still got you covered with Fox 8 Overtime, our Tuesday night show. We've got the final play on Sundays, Sunday night wrapping up everything. We're still talking plenty of Saints because there's a lot to sort out there. We're also, all in on Pelicans, LSU, Tulane right now. Baseball season getting ready to get started up. So you can find all of that, the Fox 8 News app, our Final Play app. We stay on top of all of our Saints coverage, and you can find Sean Fazan's After Further Review blog, a lot of good Saints analysis, and the rest of us will contribute with plenty on LSU, Tulane, recruiting, all that good stuff.
And the podcast is outstanding. You guys do a great job with the podcast.
Thank you.
Again, if you want to know what's going on, click it on, check them out. They do a fantastic job with it. Let's start with Saints. Peyton made the rounds in the morning talk shows on Wednesdays, and he talked a lot about what's going on within the quarterback room. First of all, he said that Brees' announcement should be within the next week and a half, 2 weeks. My guess is he will be retiring. I don't think it's going to be a thing where there's an about face where he says, I'm coming back for it and making one more run at it. Would you agree with that? Or are you still one of those ones that think he's in limbo here?
I don't think we'll see Brees back. I know that he likes to take a really measured approach, but right. With what his wife posted on Instagram about all the injuries he played through, that to me said this was going to be Drew Brees' final year. He wasn't going to, go into it with the mindset of this is my final year, then have these injuries, have to sit out, and then have to think about coming back another year. He said, I'm going to play through that, and I commend him for it. So to me, and with everything Peyton said on all of the Wednesday media programs he went on, I see the Saints as looking forward and preparing for Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston. Not a whole lot of chatter about what else is out there, and you know, we saw the reports that the Saints weren't really players in the race for Matthew Stafford. So that tells me they like Taysom Hill, but they're also very interested in retaining Jameis.
Yeah, let's go to Jameis now. He spoke about Jameis in glowing terms on both of them, really on all the morning shows. Jameis on Michael Vick's podcast talked about, again, what he learned in New Orleans, learning from Drew Brees, learning from Sean Payton. Look, I called it the Oxford of offensive football. He had a year where, again, there wasn't any pressure on him to come in and just learn. And he talked about, he called it the Harvard of quarterback rooms. When you start looking at everything that was laid out within that podcast, where he also talks about that, again, money's not the most opportune thing for him. It is about winning. What do you think happens here? Do you think that there is a lot of talk and chatter out there? There's a market for him now, and you would think rightly so. There would be some kind of market, considering, look, the guy can play football. He can play the quarterback position. Biggest problem is, again, the turnovers, and the hope is, again, a year in that quarterback room that's been solved. What do you see happening here with Winston? So
the thing that I think we're all trying to figure out is, where is this market talk coming from? Is that from general managers, right? NFL front offices? Is that from Jameis's agent doing his job? We don't know. But it sounds like the Saints are very interested. And if I'm the Saints, I would want to retain and reap the benefits of the work they put in to, let's call it, quarterback rehab Jameis, right? Yes. They did it with Teddy Bridgewater. He came in, had a couple years. He had the chance to go to Miami before the 2019 season, came back. Teddy Bridgewater, it was a mutual beneficiary situation for the Saints and Teddy Bridgewater, because he won 5 games for the Saints, parlayed it into a starting job with the Panthers. This time around, Jameis has the opportunity to step up and stay if Drew Brees retires, where Teddy Bridgewater, there was no way he could. He had to go get his money because Drew Brees was coming back. And so if I'm Jameis and money truly isn't you know, a huge factor in all of this, obviously you're going to want more than you got last year. Right. The Saints have to be someone that you would consider. Yeah. And, you know, the talk out there is possibly the Colts, possibly the Bears. Yes. I wonder if there is the factor of where could you win most. I mean, the Colts have a pretty good defense, one of the best offensive lines in football, great at the running back position, quality wide receivers. Sure, you could go have success there with Frank Reich, who I think is a very quality head coach. The Bears, it's a little more touch and go. We'll see what they do with Mitch Trubisky first and foremost. But then you've got Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, who could very well be out of there in a year. Right. So do you want to sign there for multiple years and be in limbo and maybe have a new head coach and offensive system come in a couple years later and you're back to square one? The Saints have Peyton and weapons that you're familiar with. They have elite talent in Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. It's a place you can have success. If I'm Jameis, I'm thinking this is my chance to stay at the Harvard School of Quarterbacks and have success here in New Orleans. Yeah,
look, I agree with everything you just said. And when you look at it from that standpoint, yes. Another team that was mentioned was the New England Patriots. You know, again, maybe that might get him a little bit more intrigued. But you're right. Everything he's done here, his proximity to Alabama, where he grew up and where he lives. I mean, again, he chose New Orleans to begin with for this very reason. Although, again, coming here, being an understudy to Brees, but also, again, maybe getting a chance to maybe possibly coming in and be the heir apparent. And then just the comments that you hear from Peyton, which is, again, very un-Peyton-like. He's usually very, very clandestine, doesn't want anybody to know what's going on. Him coming out and saying it verbally, look, we want him back. That's got to tell you something also about the way they feel about him.
Absolutely. I mean, the leadership quality was something that Peyton pointed out, and being able to be that leader and that guy that the locker room respected, like they did at Teddy Bridgewater. You could see it with Jameis, and I think that's something good about that locker room, that you know, guys are ready to go. When Jameis stepped in that 49ers game, I mean, yeah, it was last minute and it wasn't pretty in that second half, but it was a, you know, get in there and go kind of game against a good defense. Either way, the team was ready to follow Jameis, and I think certainly with a year under his belt, it can be that way going forward. We saw the camaraderie that locker room typically builds with one another, and that's been one of the best things, even through some of their losing seasons and 2014 on. Like, they've always had a good locker room, and I think Jameis has bought into that. So again, that's something that would lead me to think he would want to stay and continue with that chemistry and have something good here.
Look, as last year Tampa Bay was at 5,100 yards, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. The only knock against this guy has been, again, the turnovers. And, you know, again, we call it the bad Jameis, right? I don't know if that's cured overnight, but again, he's had a chance to be able to see how Breeze goes about his day, how he looks at a defense, how he takes what the defense gives him. The big issue, again, with Jameis in a lot of cases is believing his arm can overcome anything. And a lot of guys, again, with a big arm believe that. But as you mature as a quarterback, you understand what plays you can make. And again, make the play, live another day, move the chains. That's the philosophy here. Now, again, he will open up the offense because of his ability to be able to throw the ball deep and to be able to make all the throws. But again, it's about taking care of the football. Nobody knows whether, again, that's been solved or not. The coaches obviously feel that it's been solved because they want him back. But again, we have no idea.
What the Saints have that helps is an Alvin Kamara and a Michael Thomas.
Great point.
Drew Brees, and you heard Teddy Bridgewater say it, one of the things Teddy said that Brees taught him was take the completion, complete passes. And so certainly this year you saw it with Brees in a number of games where Alvin Kamara had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 catches. If the shot down the field isn't there or in the intermediate level of the field isn't there, check it down to Kamara. He's going to make something happen. He has that unique ability. Jameis didn't have that from a running back standpoint in Tampa Bay. And so hopefully that's what you learn from Brees. Take advantage of Alvin Kamara. Take advantage of your check down. Michael Thomas gets open when healthy, running the slant as well as anybody. A pretty sure high completion percentage route. And so there are different things that you can do to limit turnovers. And then, like you said, the upside is there. I do think that the Saints could use a speedster in their prime, not necessarily a Ted Ginn on the back half of his career or an Emmanuel Sanders. No disrespect to those guys, but a burner at the wide receiver position that can open things up down the field. That's where you can take this offense to the next level, a la Devery Henderson when Brees was in his prime. Someone that can really take the top off and let you take advantage of Jameis's big arm. And so I think there's a ton of upside with Jameis Winston. You just hope that the turnovers can be cured or fixed. But again, he's got an offensive line, a running game, a pass-catching running back, and some things that he didn't necessarily have in Tampa, as well as a head coach in Sean Payton, and again, the opportunity to learn from Brees that can make him better.
Let's talk about Taysom Hill. He's the other guy in the room. He's got a nice contract. We'll get into the salary cap in a minute. I believe it'll be an open competition. I believe they've already told Jameis that. Last year was a promise that was made. It was a promise that was kept. He went 3-1 as a starter. Open competition. We see who ultimately wins that. I just think he is so much better for this team in being in the jack-of-all-trades role. I mean, he's a weapon. And you take a lot of that away from you when you put him at the quarterback position.
As much as they paid him, and obviously it's a quarterback kind of paycheck, you're right. I think he earns that paycheck with what he does everywhere else as a receiver who's caught multiple touchdowns, as a guy who's lined up at tailback, at quarterback, gets you those third and short, second and short conversions. I think he's earned it, and I like him in that role as well. Obviously, he wants to play quarterback, and Sean Payton, more than anyone else, has believed that Taysom Hill's the guy and put him in there. But there have been limits, and it hasn't always been pretty, but hopefully had the chance to learn. Maybe the fact that it truly is an open competition, not just for a backup spot, but for a starting job, maybe that unlocks something. Maybe that teaches him. Maybe he sees sometimes I just need to let it go. I mean, we can all see it during games and during replays and stuff, and there's nothing like being a quarterback in the moment, but you would think Taysom has learned from some of these situations to trust your receivers and get the ball down the field. And, you know, I think he's got a chance, and I think no matter whether it's Jameis and Taysom, whether it's Jameis, Taysom, a rookie drafted, whether it's Jameis, Taysom, and another free agent brought in, it's got to be an open competition. You can't just hand this off to somebody after Drew Brees. But the idea is iron sharpens iron, and at least with Taysom and the money you're paying him, even if you have to pay Jameis more, even if you have to bring in a free agent, whatever it will be, you're still going to get your money's worth out of Taysom because of everything else he does for the offense.
I 100% agree. I do think, and it is my belief that, again, they will draft a quarterback this year. Now, again, where they do that, again, first round, whatever, I think they'll draft a quarterback. Because I think when you look at the salary cap, bringing in another veteran probably isn't cost effective for this team. And you probably want to be grooming another player anyway in case something goes down the line. Now, again, so from that standpoint there, Matt Stafford, looks like he sets the market now for anybody you want to go out and get, especially a guy that it can come in and start for you. Although a lot of talk about Deshaun Watson, I think he eclipses what even the Rams got for. Detroit got for Stafford. Talk a bit about that, because, again, all of a sudden now the ante goes up for every quarterback that's going to be on the market now.
Yeah, if I'm looking at quarterbacks that were in the trade market, you had Stafford. I would probably put Stafford as my second best, obviously behind Deshaun Watson. So Watson, I guess the report is what, 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, young defensive players. I think that's too much for the Saints to give up, especially when you have Mickey Loomis saying they want to continue to compete for championships and being in win-now mode. Even Stafford was really going to be pushing it, considering it sounds like they're pretty enamored with Jameis and would like to retain him. And no disrespect to Stafford, but I see Jameis's upside as still being pretty up there, not far behind Stafford, if not right on pace with him. Other guys, I guess, that you could trade for, Sam Darnold, some guys like that. But again, I would lean toward, if they bring in another quarterback, it being through the draft. The only thing is, you look at how many guys turn from mid-round selections to starters. It's like Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott was second round, Russell Wilson 3rd round, Jalen Hurts 2nd round. Do you want to go that route? If you don't, then you're talking about getting a quarterback in the 1st round who's there in the late 20s that's going to be your guy. I don't know. So it becomes a little bit tougher. I do love the idea, but it's, I guess, do you have the draft capital? Do you want to spend that to trade up to get a quarterback when you're going to need to replenish in this draft, a la 2017 almost, to really compete, just because of how restricted you're going to be with free agency? If
Jameis is your guy, okay, and again, that's a if, he's 27 years old, okay? So, again, he's in his prime. You want to bring in a quarterback you can groom that can be your ultimate backup, and then maybe again he's ascending to, if there's an injury, he can come in and play for you. Taysom's going to be 31 when the season starts, and that's always been my question about Taysom Hill. How much do you put in a guy that's 31 years old that plays a very physical game? Can you keep him for 3-4 years? And is he your bridge guy to the next quarterback? So I'm interested to see what happens there. But I think, again, if it is a Taysom Jameis quarterback room, and Jameis's propensity to be able to turn the ball over has been solved some, you have time to be able to groom a quarterback, even if it's a guy in the middle rounds. My guess would be that if they're not able to retain Jameis and he goes elsewhere, I would see the Saints doing what they can to get a quarterback in the 1st round. Have Taysom be your bridge guy. And hopefully groom a guy in a year or two to become the starter. If they retain Jameis, from what we've heard and seen from the Saints in previous years, they like to say they handle their business in free agency, and the draft is used to kind of supplement that. And so if you're able to retain Jameis, I don't necessarily see you have to go into the draft and get your quarterback in the 1st round, because, like you said, he's a durable guy. He's played through injuries in Tampa. He's 27. Taysom, on the other hand, not only 31, we saw the knee injury at the end of this year after he got some extended playing time, but also he was a guy that suffered several season-ending injuries at BYU. It's almost like, has he been playing above the average for his career and avoiding injury, playing physically, whereas we saw in college, he was hurt a lot. Now, we obviously hope he would stay healthy no matter whether he's playing quarterback, kickoff team, whatever. But you've got to take these things into consideration when you're making a decision for the starting quarterback in a franchise that has always, or at least the last 15 years, had a solid
more than solid, great player at that position.
You can have a playoff-ready team. If you don't have a playoff-ready quarterback, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, so that's the most important position on the field. And again, they're going to get it right. If Jameis doesn't sign, I can see them going the first round and trying to get a quarterback. But I could see them also, again, rolling the dice and going out there and trading for a quarterback that could come in immediately and get and give the, because this team is still a playoff prime and still has a chance at a Super Bowl. Again, you don't want to let that window close now. So I can see them being very aggressive there. But I think honestly, first choice is that we both agree, Hill and Jameis in that quarterback room. The salary cap, interesting. A lot of talk now that, again, the $176 million floor that we were going to see with the salary cap is not going to be that. The NFLPA owners are going to come together. They would like to maybe take these COVID losses and spread them out over a couple seasons. They believe, again, with the 17-game season next year and then the new TV contracts we're going to see the following year, that, again, they're going to be more than able to make up for the losses they've seen this year and possibly, again, even into next year. So, again, they'd like to be able to soften that blow in terms of the amount of money the cap will drop this year. They're talking about now it could be as much as $180 million, $195 million. Again, that helps the Saints tremendously in terms of, again, what they have to do. I've said this all along, Chris, and I'd love to get your take on it. When you look at Loomis and Peyton, they don't want to be 7-9 ever again. Okay, they dealt with that for 3 straight seasons. That's not the MO here. They've got a team that ultimately is, again, still playoff and Super Bowl ready. Now, the question is, can you retain them? I think there's always been a plan to be able to retain the core of this team. Now, can you retain everybody? Maybe a Trey Hendrickson gets away from you because, again, of a year that maybe you didn't expect. But I think the players that are here right now, that I don't think there's going to be this mass exodus out the door because they can't afford them. I think they'll do what they have to do to retain those players, extending them, dummy years, reworking contracts, whatever they have to do. What's your take?
So, Sean Fazan and I on the Fox 8 Overtime podcast have discussed this a lot too. In terms of the salary cap, certainly if you have a little bit more to play with than you thought, that helps. That saves like some of those cap casualties that might save you $2 or $3 million here, or $4 or $5 million here, like a Malcolm Brown on the defensive line or something like that. You can get a guy like that to stay, which is huge for their run defense. But you've got to, it all starts with the quarterback. And these are all things that we've never had to talk about for the last 15 years because you've always had Drew Brees and you knew he was going to be your guy. So that's got to be the first domino to fall. Does Drew Brees retire? Assuming he does, how much does it cost to retain Jameis? Now we can start to look at the rest of the roster and see guys you can fit in. Sean is of the belief that a franchise quarterback, a good quality starting quarterback that can win you games, is worth probably about 4 wins, right? Look at what Tampa did with Tom Brady. Absolutely. Look at what the Colts did bringing in Phillip Rivers. These are players that elevate your number of wins. I agree, but on the other side of that, think about the identity of this Saints team. It has been Drew Brees in an offense because he's Drew Brees and it's Sean Payton. But sneakily, it's been this defense that has kept them in games. It was this defense that when Taysom Hill was starting, helped them win at Denver, at Atlanta, at home against Atlanta, kept them in the game against Philadelphia. I think you still got to pay attention to that side of the ball and address that with your salary cap, and you can't. It's why I'm a little hesitant to go out and maybe sign a guy that's going to cost a ton of money at quarterback, because how hard is it to find pass rushers?
Right.
You might want to try to keep Trey Hendrickson.
Yep, sure.
Marcus Williams has taken steps forward. If the salary cap is a little bit higher than expected, you might want to try to keep him. You'd love to be able to not have to let go of Malcolm Brown. Anybody else in the defense, you'd love to be able to pay Marshawn Lattimore to stay, and hopefully they can get something worked out. You've got to pay Ryan Ramczyk. There's a lot of other pieces to this team that keep them in win-now mode, and I think that defense is a big part of them having success. Because even when Drew Brees was balling out, like you said, from 2014 to 16, they were 7-9 because they didn't have a good defense that they could rely on. So that needs to maintain and stay intact, and I think being able to handle that with the salary cap is going to be a big part of them being able to win going forward.
Right. I agree with that. I agree about the defense, especially now, the way this is set up. You're going to have, again, you have built a defense for a reason, really, again, to try to really make the Super Bowl with Drew Brees as, again, he was getting older. But the defense is in place now. You want to be able to try to hang your hat on that. But at the same time, again, they have finessed the cap for so long, eventually they say the credit card's going to come due. Even with Breeze's $21 million in dead money, when he announces he's going to retire within the next week or so, they can spread that over 2 years at about 11.5. They have the ability to be able to spread these losses on the cap, this dead money on the cap. Also, when they're negotiating these new deals, making them cap friendly the first couple of years and taking that hit a little bit later when you know ultimately the NFL football is popular. They're going to get more money on the TV deals than they've ever seen before. They're going to break records here. So again, I don't think there's panic at Airline Drive right now. I think there's been a plan. I think there's a plan to keep this core intact. Now, if a guy like Henderson goes out on the market and breaks the bank, that might be tough. If a guy like Williams goes out there and breaks the bank, that might be tough. But if there is a way to be able to do that and to be able to retain the players, I don't see this wholesale changeover, a loss of, again, all these assets they've acquired in 1 year simply because you got a COVID-19 cap that again, is followed through with, again, dead money for Drew Brees. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and if you're right, it's funny because I've seen more and more talk about, is the salary cap a myth? Is it real? Like, how easy is it to beat?
Look at the Rams. Exactly.
Look at the Rams. Look at the Chiefs, who shelled out big money for Patrick Mahomes. His base salary this year was like $850,000, and then they, even going forward, they were able to work it to where they push stuff further down the road because they got him on like a 10-year contract. So the Saints are the ultimate case of kicking the can down the road, and now everybody's expecting, like you said, this mass exodus. If they dodge that, then it's like, okay, how easy is it to work around the salary cap? Or not easy, but how well can it be done? And the Saints are obviously masters of that. So that's the key for them. And like you said, I do think there's a plan. And this isn't the first year that we've talked about, is this it for Drew Brees? What can they do with his dead money? It's always been the offseason starts with Drew Brees deciding whether he's going to come back or not. This year just feels like the most realistic one for him to hang it up.
I mean, just like with Ramczyk and Lattimore, two guys you want to keep. Again, you got them going in their fifth-year options. Again, just make the first couple of years of their salary is going to be low. And ultimately, again, there's going to be a balloon payment back on the back end.
You could even do that with Trey Hendrickson.
Right. Again, I have the utmost confidence in Loomis and Harley that they've already had a plan. Monkey wrench was thrown in with COVID-19. There's some uncertainty. The issue is, on some of the articles I've been reading lately, they don't know when they're going to be able to figure out what the cap is going to be. It literally may be 2 weeks before the NFL New Year. That's going to be the key. But I have faith that again, that this team is not going to have a mass exodus of players. They're going to keep these guys in house, and they'll spread the money out, and they'll kick the can down the road. Eventually, we'll see how it goes. Until NFL football gets to the point where, again, it starts declining in the ratings and they can't get the money for the TV contract they're getting, it's going to continue to be able to grow. This is an anomaly when you talk about a COVID-19 year.
And I'll say working in their favor has always been that they're an organization that wins, and 49 wins in the last 4 years says something. They've won in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
They've won with backups at just about every position, and players want to come play with that. They want to come play with a quarterback that they believe can win, so you've got to make the right decision there, but they want to come play somewhere where you can get a winner, and I think that's how you end up getting, even if it's a one-year contract for talented vets, you do that. If it's bringing in a guy like Demario Davis like they did a few years ago, you can do that. I think there are guys that still want to come play with the Saints, and likewise, there are guys on this roster that might be up for more money elsewhere that maybe say, you know what, I don't need that extra $1.5 million, $2 million. I can stay with the Saints.
That doesn't mean a guy like Thomas Morstead won't be on this team next year. Again, when you're looking at a guy that's, again, counting against the cap, $4.5 million, he makes $2 million, he's a punter. Some of those guys may be gone, but the core, I think, they hold on to. They're not letting this defense get away. There's no way in the world they're going to do that. They're going to keep this defense intact. All right, let's talk about the coaching staff right now. Chris Richard comes on as defensive back coach. I think an excellent hire. I was surprised to hear this week that Ryan Nielsen, after everything went down, assistant head coach, defensive line coach, raised, that he's interviewing for the Green Bay job, for their defensive coordinator job. Your thoughts on the coaching staff?
I think Chris Richard's an excellent hire, coming from a defense that's in Seattle that's always, under Pete Carroll, made a name for itself, and I think that's the kind of guy you want that has high expectations and has had success, to replace a guy like Aaron Glenn, who had his success as well and really turned a Saints secondary that struggled, over the last few years into a really talented group, a smart group, and even fixed a lot of things with that group midseason this year after they were exposed early in games. So I like that hire. Peyton talks glowingly about Ryan Nielsen. He wasn't surprised that he was up for the LSU job, and I was glad to see they worked something out. And he says they're good, and now Green Bay's coming after him, which, again, I don't think surprises Peyton. On the same interview, he said they were good. He said he's someone I expect to be a head coach eventually. This is how he takes that next step. So it's tough, but it's when you win, people come after your guys. And if Ryan Nielsen's as good as he says he is, no surprise he'll take this trajectory. But I know the Saints are hoping that they can, if they believe that this window is still open to win, you can retain as much as you can, because they're being rated right now, and if they're not being rated, at least guys are being looked at. So if it's not this year, it might be next.
Yep, no doubt. Before we take a break and hear from our underwriters, do want to ask you about Super Bowl, Tampa Bay versus Kansas City this weekend. Who do you like and why? I'm
going with the Chiefs. It's hard to bet against Mahomes, but I sneakily also think that Kansas City secondary is still underrated. They've got Tyrann Mathieu. They've got some talented younger guys, and they've played well against the pass for most of this season. So I think that they can hold up against Tom Brady and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in that group. And then it's Patrick Mahomes. And we saw what they did to Tampa's secondary in the regular season. I do think Todd Bowles will bounce back. He certainly bounced back well against the Saints in the divisional round, but Mahomes and the Chiefs and them getting healthy at running back as well, I think that's a lot to handle.
Yeah, it's a different animal when you're talking about Kansas City and Mahomes' ability to be able to extend plays as opposed to Drew Brees and his limitations in terms of where he can throw the football, which
Very
again,
true.
we find out now. And Tampa knew. Tampa knew, again, he had problems, again, making all the throws, and they played him as such. On the flip side, Kansas City's ability to be able to, again, put pressure on Tom Brady up the middle, where, again, he has guys at his feet. He's not able to step up in the pocket. I think that's going to go a long way, and again, in solving this, I like Kansas City this weekend as well.
Yep.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll hear from our underwriters. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Chris Hagan from Fox 8 Sports is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We come back. We're jumping into Pels. We'll talk about LSU and Tulane, their upcoming classes, the coaching changes at LSU as well. All that coming up here on Inside New Orleans Sports. Stay tuned.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Chris Hagan of Fox 8 Sports. Our guest, we turn to Pelicans. Now 8-12, 123-101 winners over the Suns in the Smoothie King Center on Wednesday night. I said this in the first games against the Suns. Measuring stick. This is a measuring stick game whenever you go against the Phoenix Suns, because this is the team that the Pelicans should be. Okay, they should be where they are. Now, the big difference is for them is they brought in Chris Paul. I mean, they had young talent. Chris Paul, that's why I wanted Chris Paul with this team, because I thought Chris Paul would be doing exactly in New Orleans what he would be doing with Phoenix, because he's that type of player. Okay, he's a leader. He's a dog on defense. He changes your entire culture when he walks in the door. But again, they don't have that, so they got to deal with what they have. The shots were falling for them yesterday. The defense has been much better over the last few games, even against Sacramento, until they got down to the fourth quarter when we were talking in the break when the shots weren't falling. They seem to be very, very discouraged on defense. But my problem with this team is consistently inconsistent.
That has been a problem, but it's not for lack of effort. And to his credit, the things that Stan Van Gundy harps on night in and night out, it sounds like a broken record sometimes, but they are slowly but surely starting to fix it. And it starts with, on the defensive end, bringing the energy, right? One of the biggest things was this team was always, they're the first quarter kings because they come out and they light it up. They're shooting well. They're excited and bouncing around because their shots are falling, and they're active on defense because you're doing well on offense. It's got to be the other way around. You've got to let your defense dictate your mood and your energy. And Brandon Ingram last night after the game credited Lonzo Ball and Eric Bledsoe for being guys that helped them bring the energy on defense. That's where it started, and that's how they were able to weather some of the runs from the Suns and keep a lead and get back into the game, never let the Suns take over the game. And then when things got going on offense, they were good. They found success with Zion Williamson in the paint. Steven Adams had a good night in the paint. They really dominated that area and never let DeAndre Ayton get going in there either. And I think that made a big difference. So the things that Van Gundy preached, we saw against the Suns, and defensively the energy's there. They look better. They just, like you said, the consistency has to stay there.
Right, it does. I mean, again, from turnovers. Again, they don't turn the ball over a lot. Okay, again, most games, again, they're turning the ball over too much. Lonzo Ball gets hot last night. Okay, that's fine. It's great when he's hot. Most of the time, he's not hot from three-point land. So can he penetrate? Can he do what Kyra Lewis does in terms of penetrating, getting guys open? Again, with his penetration or the ability to be able to finish at the rim. Again, can he do those things? So we know he's a pretty good defender. I go right down the roster on the inconsistently we see night after night, which is, I think, has been the Achilles heel for this team. Some nights they look fantastic and they put it all together. Most nights it's just inconsistent on one side of the floor or the other. And look, there's not a lot that separates a lot of these teams when you start talking about the NBA. And if you're not playing a solid game for 4 quarters, you're going to get beat.
The things that they did well against the Suns, though, if you continue to do well, those are the things that will bring you success whether the shots are falling or not. And so another criticism of Van Gundy after the Kings game was Zion and Brandon Ingram trying to force it too much. And then you look at last night, as big of a night Zion had scoring, he also had 6 assists. Brandon Ingram had 23 points, 6 assists. Lonzo Ball did shoot well, but he attacked the rim as well.
He did.
And take away, 2 or 3 threes from Lonzo Ball, they still win that game because they played good defense, they moved the ball, and they had 30 assists to less than 10 turnovers. Yep. It's that simple. The assist numbers don't have to be at 30 every night. That'd be a very high pace. It's doable, but they don't have to be there if you're not turning the ball over much. And it's defense and energy. They played good pick and roll defense the last 2 games, even against the Kings, and then not turning the ball over. It's simple, and it'll keep you in games. You've got to make the shots sometimes to win them, but you won't see the big third-quarter lapses, fourth-quarter lapses, and big runs from other teams if you do those simple things.
Look, they need an identity. Van Gundy wants the identity to be defense first. They've got to be able to adhere to that. When they play defense, they don't turn the ball over. The offense will come. Look, a lot of times those shots are not falling. But again, they like to go inside out. If you're attacking the rim, eventually you're going to get open shots on the outside. You just got to be able to knock those down. The other thing is, again, he's still tinkering with his bench. We saw Jackson Hayes on the sidelines. Again, look, I still think he needs playing time. You cannot retard his progress at this point. He's got to get on the court and continue to play. But Hernan Gomez came in. He's just a more polished player at this point. You can't slow down the development of Hayes, but he still needs playing time. And I would say the same thing about Kyra Lewis. He needs to get on the floor. We've seen with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the ability to get on the floor, how much he's flourished now, more playing time he gets. I understand that, again, Lewis is 160 pounds, but look, he plays defense. He's fearless when it comes to rebounding. He needs to get time on the floor. The question is, how far can you extend that bench?
Yeah, and I think that'll be interesting to see whether it comes in games like last night, whether it comes during back-to-backs when you need to get deeper into the bench, when you maybe don't want to run Bledsoe or Alonzo out there for a ton of minutes back-to-back nights, and you can put in a guy like Kyra Lewis Jr. I do think his time will come, and they all like what they've seen. But I agree, he does need the playing time. The one knock you could say on him is, as much as he penetrates, they did miss a lot of shots in the lane against the Kings. Hernan Gomez was a little hit or miss in that game too, but he's another guy. You get him more minutes, he's going to play well, and maybe that lights a fire for Jackson Hayes. I mean, the guy's an 8th pick a year ago. He's got to be a guy that can come in and give you something more than he's given you. He's just got to be more solid on the defensive end, less mistake prone, less turnover prone, and just he's got the talent. Just he's got to be mentally locked in. So hopefully, sometimes maybe sitting back for a game or two can let you examine and learn from the guys that are in the game.
It's just a lack of experience for him. Again, when you're talking about a year of college basketball and then going thrust in the NBA, thrust into playing last year and then this year, because of injuries, it's going to take some time with him just to be able to learn. Hernan Gomez came in and played better defense because he's a more polished player, where Jackson Hayes is lost on defense. We're seeing Zion getting better on defense. He's been lost at times in a liability. He's getting better. Like you said, I like the team defense we saw last night, and we saw it several times where you walk away going, now that is a good set of defense that you saw on a particular time down court. So they have the ability to do it. Can they do it night after night? That's the question.
That's the thing. And after the results, you saw what good defense got you. A huge lead against Milwaukee in the first half.
Yes.
Luckily, they were able to hang on barely in that one. You saw what bad defense gets you, and that's Houston on Saturday.
Right.
You saw what good defense gets you. A 7-point lead late in the game against the Kings. You just didn't hang on to it, and then you see what a complete 48 minutes of good defense and energy looks like against a good team against the Suns. When you play good defense, it translates to offense, it translates to pace, and guess what? The Suns are the 4th best team defensively, and the Pelicans were all over them last night. You can do that when you get out and running and playing with pace, even against a good defense like them.
And I think you hit on another thing, the pace. The ability to get up the floor. Again, it doesn't mean running like you saw with Alvin Gentry, but getting up the floor and getting to your offense quicker, okay? Because you find a lot of times they get into the offense too slow, and then, of course, you're taking bad shots at the end of the shot clock. Get into it a little bit quicker, get up the floor, and then get into the offense. And again, let's see, because this is going to be based on ball movement as well, especially when you got a guy that again is like Zion in the middle. You're going to have to try to move the ball around to be able to get him open shots. And then, of course, the ability for Brandon Ingram to be able to slash, but also hit that mid-range shot when necessary. Let's talk about trades, because, again, there was a lot of talk this week. J.J. Redick would be moved by Tuesday. That did not happen. Again, Lonzo Ball's been talked about in possible trade talks. How aggressive do you think the Pelicans will be with those players in the upcoming, before the trading deadline, which is, again, just after the All-Star break? It's
interesting. In terms of J.J. Redick, he was a guy that obviously he's later in his career. I think he wants to be in the playoffs. Still unclear if it happens in New Orleans. I mean, the difference between the 7th seed and 7th or 14th isn't that big. So maybe there is still a future with this Pelicans team getting something going, and whether they have to do the play-in tournament or whatever, getting into the playoffs. That said, this is the last year of his deal, so I think that would be a good contract to deal to a contender and get something out of it. And even if it's another pick, you could at least package that to somebody whenever David Griffin wants to, quote, make his move and turn this team into a potentially big winner and bring in a superstar via trade to pair with Zion and Brandon Ingram. That would be the one that I'm looking at. Lonzo Ball, it's interesting because you look at the Bucks game. They don't win that game if he doesn't hit 7 threes. Is he going to hit 7 threes every night? No. He's probably going to shoot closer to that, like 38 to 40% at best for a season from three-point land. And they have so many guards. I mean, you drafted Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You got Kyra Lewis Jr., a true point guard. Maybe because you're preparing for not being able to bring Lonzo back if he wants a lot of money, and they couldn't get an extension worked out preseason. So maybe he does want more money. Do you trade him and try to get something for him? If it risks you not being able to make the playoffs this year, and because I think there's a little more pressure on this team to do something, I think it's worth maybe not getting something in return if Lonzo helps you get a little further. That sounds crazy because this is a team that's built to perform well in the future, but they're just towing the line. They're towing the line of preparing for the future and getting the younger guys like Kyra Lewis Jr. in the game and trying to win now, which would be having your young veterans like Lonzo in the game.
$14 million is the qualifying offer for next year for Lonzo Ball. I mean, that's the question when you're going forward. Again, you're going to make an investment. Look, we don't know what the upside is on it, okay? We can look at his brother and see this looks like there's a tremendous upside there, okay? We don't know what his upside is. We know he's a hard worker. You've seen that with his shot. But is he a fit? That's the other question. I mean, again, you need a guard that is physical, that's willing to go in and mix it up inside. That's not his MO. So again, is he a fit? Or is he an asset? And for some teams, he would be a perfect fit, okay? You know, a lot of talk about Golden State. He would be a perfect fit with that type of offense because I always thought he could flourish in an Alvin Gentry offense. When the trade was made and Gentry was here, the first thing I said was, this kid can excel in this offense. And look, he has the ability to do that. I think they're preparing for life after Lonzo. The question is, again, will they make the deal by the trading deadline or will they make it earlier? I can't see making that investment in a guy that, at least right now, doesn't fit what you're trying to do. If it was a different coach, different system, I'd say maybe, again, you're looking at him long term.
It's still early, and that's what gives me pause because we always think of Lonzo, the true point guard, the distributor, the facilitator, but this is a new role for Lonzo Ball, and if he does develop and the Pelicans do see the upside of him being a scorer, a two-guard at times, or maybe in a different rotation, being the guy that does facilitate the offense, there can be upside. I'm still a believer in his talent, absolutely, and I'm sure there are other teams salivating like, let us get him in here, and we know what to do with him. You guys may not be using him to the best of his ability right now, but we're still seeing what he can be with this team. They're 20 games into a 72-game season. There's a long time to see whether or not he's worth a long-term investment, and I think that's the challenge right now of handling the pressure of the promises of David Griffin and getting this team to success versus trying to make sure that you get something for him or you don't find yourself in a bad spot going forward.
When you look at David Griffin right now, one of the other questions is how aggressive should he be? He has all these assets. Should he be bringing in veterans? Like I've said, veterans that can play. I know they want guys that can shoot. I want to see some veterans that can play defense. Guys that lead by example on this team playing defense. This will be a defensive-minded team. Do you think he's going to be aggressive as we get closer to the trading deadline? Or do you think he's going to stand pat with what he has?
It depends on, I think, where the Pelicans see themselves this year and how far they can go. I know that you look at Zion and you know, he's got a few years here still, and you look at, and he's still only played like 43 games. He obviously got Brandon Ingram on a 5-year deal. I think David Griffin is waiting for the time to say, these guys are where they need to be as the future. Let's make the deal and bring in the third piece that is going to take us to the next level. If that is not this year and you are not in position, maybe it's not time to make that big spend and you wait until the offseason and free agency and see how that shakes out, or what you can do early next year and what other teams are in a position to trade or give up certain guys, a la Bradley Beal if something changes there, or whoever else elsewhere in the league. I think David Griffin's willingness to package all the capital, the talent, the young players, the assets, whatever, is going to come depending on where this team can take steps forward in the next month and a half.
Let's talk LSU. First of all, 2021 class, top 5 class. Your thoughts on again how Ed Orgeron went about this class and the class he ended up with?
Man, they go 5-5 and finish in the top 5 ahead of a team like Clemson that is habitually recruited within like the top 2 or 3. So that's an outstanding get for Orgeron. I think that says the LSU brand nationally and especially locally is just as strong. To get a guy like Sage Ryan to make sure you continue what's become a very promising string of quarterbacks and bringing in a Garrett Nussmeier, I think that says a lot about where this team is. And what I'm excited about as much as anything with LSU is, like, if you're looking at it from kind of a pro approach, the Saints talk about free agency, bringing in the guys you want to help you win and supplementing with the draft. LSU retains a lot of linemen on both sides of the ball, 2 of the best corners, maybe the best cornerback pair in the country in Ricks and Stingley. And then you bring in this recruiting class to add to it. I really like what they were able to do and go forward, and I think there's a chance for a big bounce back and within the next year or two to be back in a playoff. I really believe that because it starts with recruiting. It starts with bringing in the talent. Now you're just looking at Durante Jones and the new hires elsewhere to capitalize on that.
Now, you guys mentioned it on Overtime the other night. Not just the 2021 class, the 2022 class, where again they've already gone in and at least have either verbal commitments or again are in close with a lot of Louisiana players in what could be again a blue chip Louisiana class. And
that's the one. Those are the classes that you have got to hone in on and lock down the border, as Ed Orgeron loves to say, when it comes to Louisiana. Every now and then, because this is a football-rich state, you're going to have top 10 running backs, top 10 receivers, quarterback, linemen, skill positions, whatever it may be, and that's the ones where the LSU brand has to be at its best, because that's how you get a top 5 class. That's how you get a number 1 or number 2 class, like a 2014 when you had a top 5-star receiver in Malachi Dupree, a Leonard Fournette, a number of guys that you were able to bring in and make your class so good because that talent was coming from Louisiana. You can identify that with 2022. Even 2023 is going to be a really strong class. So I think that's where LSU knows they need to hit on to keep things going. And you saw it with Alabama this year. Look how much Louisiana talent was on that team.
Right.
That could be LSU. That talent is there.
Also, again, when you look at a little bit different because of COVID-19 rules, allowing any player to be able to transfer without penalty. Again, the transfer portal is also a way that the Tigers could go. They're looking for, they've got 3 open spots. They're looking for a linebacker, a best player available. And there's an oversaturation, as you and I were discussing before the program today, of players in the transfer portal. A lot of those guys that, again, transferred out and got in the portal, again, are not going to find a place to go. So, again, LSU will have a chance to be able to pick and choose who they want to be able to fill those last 3 spots.
And they've done very well with that. Obviously, a guy named Joe Burrow, I think
that's the guy.
They've done pretty well in the transfer portal, and I think Ed Orgeron is very mindful of that, and I don't think he's a guy, and I don't think many programs do anymore just because of how big the transfer portal is, but you don't sweat not signing a full class because you can look there and see that you have starters come out of that, guys with college experience, guys whose bodies are ready for the college game and able to come in and start and play right away. A lot of those guys being guys that contributed on their 2019 championship team, not just Burrow, but a couple offensive linemen and other positions as well. So I think that's certainly an area that they've done well, just taking inventory and knowing what they need to do after a signing class to bring the team to the next level.
The coaching staff is complete now. Jake Pease is the offensive coordinator. Mangus is the passing coordinator. George Munoz comes back. Durante Jones, the defensive coordinator. Blake Baker is the linebacker coach. Andre Carter is the defensive line coach. And Austin Thomas comes back as the general manager. Your thoughts on how Orgeron has reworked this staff?
Well, the goal is obviously 2019, right? So you get anybody who has a connection to Joe Brady, a lot of that offensive staff, and then Durante Jones, who comes with a high recommendation from Dave Aranda, who was one of the best coordinators to ever do it at LSU. And so ideally, it's shades of that, and it's just the right fit. It's the right fit to capitalize on the talent, and because it's there. I mean, there's no way, despite some of the issues they had on defense, they were still good enough talent-wise to be better than what they put on the field. So that can't happen again. and it doesn't have to be perfect, because I think you can score a lot of points, but you've got to be better than they were. That's the key thing, finding the guys who can capitalize and that have a true vision for how to use these players.
Switch to Tulane. Their class is in, I believe it was 18 for their class. They also have 4 grad transfers they've added to the team. Talk about Willie Fritz's 2021 class.
Well, I'm excited about what they brought in at running back in terms of Iverson Celestine, a guy that on Fox 8 Football Friday, the high school show, we have been calling his name up there at Fountain Blue for a while. Devin Brumfield was another one, set all kinds of records, was outstanding at Covington, helped them make a deep playoff run a few years ago, and he's coming back from Utah. And so I think these are guys that they can use at the running back position. Obviously, they'll have Tajay Spears coming off of injury, and Cam Carroll, who had an excellent 2020 season. But with Amari Jones and I believe Stephen Hutterson entering the transfer portal, these are guys that can supplement that Tulane backfield. And it'll be interesting to see how that offense looks going forward. But one thing we know, they know how to take advantage of their running backs and use them. They've got a quality quarterback. This is a chance for Tulane to really build the program, because at any level of football, it all starts with the quarterback, and I think Michael Pratt is the guy for them.
And he's a guy that Willie Fritz has taken advantage of the grad transfer. He's taken advantage of the portal. Teams like Tulane can take real advantage of this now, especially, again, with the oversaturation of players that are in the portal right now.
Yeah, Kyron Sutton, a guy who comes from McNeese State, set records at receiver there. A New Orleans native comes back, and they were able to do well with transfers last year. The Watts brothers, I think they had Michael Jones from Oklahoma. They had Jalen McCleskey come from Oklahoma State a couple years ago. You nailed it. They do well bringing in the skill positions at transfer, and so hopefully they hit gold again. It
wasn't so long ago that wasn't happening, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, again, you couldn't get Tulane. They weren't letting guys in. Guys couldn't get in. Now, all of a sudden, again, since Willie Fritz has come in, they're taking advantage of that, something they should have done all along.
It's an attractive spot, and they play a good brand of football. Again, Will Hall did so much for that offense and made it what it was. You want to see some level of that continue, because guys want to play in there in that offense. Guys want to be anywhere they can be, and even defensively, you're going to see guys like Cameron Sample playing at the next level, and there's talent there as well. So this is a program. And you look at a couple games last year, as we always do, but they could have easily been an 8-win team. I think they're on the verge of that now if they do all the right things.
Yep, and look, the biggest position that they need to fill has already been filled, and that's quarterback. In order to win at any level, you need a great quarterback, and it looks like they got a pretty good quarterback room.
Got an excellent quarterback room with Pratt.
Yep, no doubt. Chris, as always, thanks so much for joining us here on Inside New Orleans Sports.
Of course, man. Glad to do it.
That's Chris Hagan with Fox 8 Sports. Again, check him out each and every day over at Fox 8, and also, again, their fantastic shows as well. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. Again, plenty of ways to be able to catch this show now, as I like to run this down for you as we end the program. There's a rebroadcast of this program at 6 p.m. on WLAE-TV tonight. WLAE-TV 2, 10 o'clock tonight. On Friday night, 9 o'clock on Pelican. That's across South Louisiana. It's Pelican Sports Television. 10 o'clock on WLAE. 2 a.m. on Saturday morning on WLAE-TV 2. And then 5 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television. That is on Saturday afternoon. Remember, all the previous episodes can be found at ericasher.com, also on the WLAE-TV YouTube page. And also, don't forget, also on my social media pages, Eric Asher on Facebook, at Eric_Asher on Twitter. We are now live streaming this program each and every Thursday at 1 p.m. So again, make sure you check that out on the live stream if you can't get in front of a television. Also, you catch me on the radio on weekdays 4 to 6 on 106.1 WRKN. There you can listen live at ericasher.com, also the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app. The podcast is up now. It's on all the major podcasting platforms. All you got to do is search Inside New Orleans Radio Show with Eric Asher. Again, special thanks to Chris Hagan for joining us on the program. Fantastic job as always. Also to the WLA production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Tommy Fairley, Tommy O'Connor, and the best director on the planet, William Hill. I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. And that's a wrap.